Našim prvým hosťom je človek, ktorý spája tradíciu s budúcnosťou. Jacob Uhlenkott pochádza z piatej generácie podnikateľskej rodiny v Idahu v USA. S rodinou dnes rieši, ako prepojiť hodnoty predkov s víziou pre ďalšie generácie cez nové formy vlastníctva, vzdelávacie programy a spoločné podniky. Jeho motto znie: našou otázkou nie je, ako zachováme minulosť, ale ako vybudujeme budúcnosť, na ktorú by boli naši predkovia naozaj hrdí. Ako budovať firmu, aby uživila ďalšie generácie? Čo všetko musí zvládnuť firma, aby bola podporou aj pre deti vašich detí? Ako budovať projekty, ktoré majú dlhodobý dopad a prečo nestačí len odovzdať firmu, ale treba ju stavať tak, aby mohla živiť ďalšie generácie? O tom všetkom sa s Jacobom budú rozprávať Erika Madari-Matví a Monika Naďová-Krošláková. Prosím, dámy a páni, privítajte nášho prvého hostia na pódiu, Jacoba Uhlenkotta.
Hello, good morning. It's good to see you all here, or should I say Dobra Jana? I have a lot to work on in my understanding of Slovakia. So today, if we can get the presentation going, wonderful. Today I wanted to speak a little bit. I come from far away. My flight here was 20 hours yesterday to fly here from my family farm. And what I wanted to speak about was that the entrepreneur spirit is global. The pioneering spirit is global. I'm fifth generation of my family. Many of you here are first or second generation. And so I see when I meet you and as we interact and as I speak with you today, I see that I'm meeting my great-grandparents and my great-great-grandfather and people that I never had the honor to meet, but I get with you and interacting with you, I get to meet you. I get to meet them through you. Because what most of you in this room you are in that stage of the first and second generation, and it's such a critical stage. I want to go a little bit about why I'm here. So, a funny story. I was supposed to be here next year in 2026. Monica and I were at a little event in Rome with some of our dear friends. Some of you are in the room today. And she invited me. We got to talking about my family and our family history and all the different businesses that we have. And she's like, come in 2026, please come. And I was like, great, I'll come. I'll give a presentation. I'll make it specific for you here in the audience. And then I get a call down the road and a month later, and she's like, actually, can you come this year? And so you are getting a presentation that is totally, I've never spoken about this before. It's not something that I typically speak about because it's very private. The family businesses, these are typically very private matters. But I wanted to speak to you in a way that you can really bring value from this and potentially learn about how do things look after the second, third, fourth, and into the fifth and sixth generation? How can things look? What are the problems to avoid? Different things like that. So it's an honor to be here. I want to thank especially the organizers, Monica and Linda and everyone who's put this together. Just a round of applause. Thank you so much for everything that you've done in putting this together. So there's a lot of family business. This could be a week-long seminar just to get through a fraction of everything that we've learned over the generations, and a lot of the struggles as well as the successes, and there's been plenty of both. And I want to go through, as we go through, I want to go through some of the core issues that we've had to deal with as a family. Is how do you divide the wealth after the first generation, and how do you make sure that you don't lose the engine, because you have one model on one hand where the oldest inherits everything, and that comes with all sorts of issues. And then you have the other model where you try and split everything up equally, and then everything withers away within the first or second, within the second generation. There's a troubling statistic from the Williams Group where By the second generation, over 70% of family wealth is lost. And by the third generation, over 90% of family wealth is lost. And to me, that is a big, big problem, and it's one that I've dedicated my life to helping working with families and understand in my own family how we can continue to hold things together and grow. Why? Because I see families as the bedrock of society. If we have strong families, strong family businesses, we have strong societies, and we have strong independent communities that are very difficult to coerce and very difficult to control, but are more of a groundswell of good, healthy community. And that's what I want to see more of. So we'll go into this a little bit more from the family side and the different challenges, going through conflicts and relationship consequences as we go through this. And if I could have someone just let me know on the time when I need to slow down, so I will. So just a little bit about me, so you know who I am. I am a fifth-generation member of the Uhlenkott family. We pioneered in a little state. It's a lot of land, but not a lot of people. In the northwest of the United States, it's called Idaho. My great-great-grandfather came from Germany as an immigrant and with his father, and they first settled in Minnesota in 1850, roughly 1854, and then they were in Minnesota for a few years and then decided to continue west to Idaho. So at the time, Idaho was nothing. I'll get into that a little bit more. So what I've done is I came up in the family business. We have multiple companies. We've started others in my generation, and I came up understanding entrepreneurship, doing client conversations, from when I was 5, 8 years old. I remember having conversations, learning how to do sales, learning how to speak to clients, customer service, those types of things. And also on the farm, I remember, at 8 years old, I'm driving these big harvesters, combines. Each one of these is $1 million piece of equipment, and I'm 8-year-old and I'm driving it. So it was quite a gift to be able to grow up that way. On the other side of in my life, my mother is a 45-year political lobbyist. I grew up with her as well, understanding, how to work with government. I spent a lot of time trying to understand and working within the U.S. government, both politically on the campaign side and then legislatively in the U.S. Senate. I've been quoted on some of the family enterprises in Inc. and Fasco were the most recent, on different ways to look at what's going on in the U.S. At different times. So enough about me. Let's get into this. So how did we get here? So I'm fifth generation. We came out in the 1880s, like I said, from Minnesota, Germany to Minnesota, and then from Minnesota to Idaho. And I'm here today because of sacrifices that were made in a generation similar to where everyone in this audience is mostly. It took my great-great-grandfather, John J.H., to leave his home, to go across the world into a land that had nothing. It was starting from scratch. And I see the similarities in the history of this country, Slovakia and Eastern Europe. You're in a similar position. A lot of this had to start from essentially nothing in the 90s. And so that pioneering spirit I see alive and well in this room as my grandfather and my great-great-grandfather had when he came out. And how do we capture that and move forward? So his story is he came out, he wanted to found a town. He was very faith-based. He wanted to create a community. So he was one of the founding members of the town that I'm from, and along with a few other families. And he built the initial homesteads and the farms, and that's where Uhlenkott Farm started, and that's been the longest family business. In the 1920s, my great-grandfather he built his own well drill. He needed water, so he built a drill, started drilling for neighbors, and then it became a business over the years, and that's going still to this day. We established more into resource management, growing the farms. 1973 was when my father founded Uhlenkott Underground. That's underground utility company and a lot of water systems business. And then to the present day, We now operate a structural steel facility. We're the largest in our state. We employ hundreds of people within our town. We have grown the farm significantly. We have multiple businesses in multiple states, ranging from Virginia to Minnesota to Colorado to Idaho. And that's where we are today. The generations at a glance here, I think you just use this as a reference, but I think that the driving thing for us is that it just was instilled in us from birth culturally that you own a business, that you will start a business, you will own a business, think of everything as a business owner, and a culture of hard work, but more importantly than the business, who are we? What do we ascribe to? And I'll get more into what that looks like a bit further, but right now, this is just a collection of the companies that we have right now, and we're running as a family roughly about 90 million annual revenue as a family, just so you kind of understand where we are and what you can grow to over the generations. We'll get into the successes and failures, but I wanted to go forward here to, I think, more the foundational level is your family culture. This will endure more than anything else. Family businesses come and go, times change, and the thing that we can do most to instill in the next generation is who are we outside of just business, outside of just making money? What does that money do? What is the tool these instruments of wealth creation and family businesses? That tool of wealth? What is that going to, and how is that moving our community forward and the greater body politic forward? And so this was instilled in us from a young age. This picture that you see is a monastery. It's a Benedictine monastery that my great-great-grandfather, he donated all the land, he helped finance, he got the original nuns came out from Switzerland. He did all of this in a very short period of time, and this was built in a town. At the time, that town had maybe 300 people. And he built this, and he built it. He's buried there, as well as I have numerous aunts who were nuns, and they ran the monastery through the generations. And what this did was multiple fronts. It preserved the memory just of our family. There's a museum there, and there's a lot about the Uhlenkott family in the museum. It preserved the memory of our family, which is great. But it also it helped build a community that lasted. And we all go to this, and we all look at this and wonder with awe and reverence. And I think that that's something that, as we think about family business, it's very important to think about what our legacy, no matter what faith. This is just an example for our family on what was important. For your family, it might look different. But what is it that we need to ascribe to as a family beyond ourselves? And for my family, it's been community building. It's been faith, education, and building hospitals. So this is something through all of this is something really important to understand. I'm going to back up here to what worked and what didn't. So I think it's important to understand that over the generations, there were 10 original homesteads. The ones that survived, there were 3. There's 3 today. And then the ones that did really well, there's 1. So what, to me, that's a 10% success for the entire family. And this is part of the learning that we've had to do as a family over the generations. But it's important to understand that we didn't do succession very well at the beginning, and it's been a learning part. But what worked really well, and the reason why we've succeeded in spite of succession plans, was because of the underlying culture. So when you see what failed, we've had a box factory that failed. We had a sawmill that went out of business. It's important to understand that not every business, you might be in one specific business, and not every single business is going to succeed over multiple generations. That's okay. It's how do we think through, and I'll get into the structure that we're building now to move forward, but how do we not just have our focus on just one business, but carrying the family business and then the family wealth through the generations, even if a business has to be sold or closed down, or as the family pivots over the generations. And that's something that needs to be part of the family constitutions and everything else. What really worked well was that we had really strong multi-generational acres, and we really focused on the things that were our core competencies. We are only now getting more involved in technology in the family. We're only now getting more involved in today's day and age. But the bedrock businesses are businesses that people need to rely on. It's water, it's steel, it's construction, and agriculture. So these types of businesses have sustained my family for generations and will continue as we move forward, even if we employ different models. It's important to understand in family business that not every business is going to succeed, and that's okay. As we go through this, and the succession is handling the family dynamics, and you'll hear from some wonderful speakers as we go through the day. But I think it's really important to understand and separate the management in the family from the ownership. It's absolutely mission critical if you're going to continue to go forward. And I'm jumping around here because I just want to be really mindful of the time. When you have to own or you have to manage your own business, you have to really ensure that you're always there. And eventually you need to be able to move between ownership and family. And so in the interest of time, what we've developed over the years is instead of going where everything goes to the oldest or dividing everything up equally, what we are doing now is we are building what we call a trust and family bank model for us, so that we can move forward. And the reason that we want it to work is that we don't want to continue as the family grows, where family members that don't want to do the business or they're not interested in what currently is, where they don't have to sell their shares of the family. They can stay part of the family, and we want to broaden the scope of what everybody can bring to the table. We don't want people to feel forced that they have to take on management of a business if they're not qualified. But everyone within the family gets to partake in it, and so this is what we've developed, and we're continuing to develop as a family. So we're using a family bank model. We're in the midst of organizing this. It's operated by a family constitution that we go into, how succession plans will work, how you pass down culture. The primary rules of the family bank is that we have an annual meeting. Everybody has to show up. It's in person, and everybody needs to contribute to it. The core components here are we have a trust structure as well as a family bank LLC, and the family bank serves as a vehicle, and we can talk more in depth about this later, but it serves as a vehicle to allow for flexibility and continuity through the generations, so that you can have as many businesses as you want that are part of the family bank, and the family bank then can operate as our own financial instrument to make loans, et cetera, to family members who want to start a new business, want to start a philanthropy, take care of family members who are invalid, and it creates a very powerful financial instrument structurally for the family to continue, where it's not just one business that we feel forced and compelled to continue, even if it's failing. So this is what we've come to as a way of preserving our family wealth through the generations. I'm happy to speak more if you have questions about this. It's something that we are in the middle of developing right now. We develop it for each family and then for the greater family overall. And without any further ado, I think we're on time, and I've got some questions I need to answer from Monica. But the key important thing here is in the Constitution is to understand, and I think this is the main point, is to understand what the values are of your family outside of just the business that you bring the generations up in from a very young age, that they learn the family culture, the family crest, the family symbols, the family values, and it's part of an education for the heirs as they grow up and they're brought through it, so that by the time it comes to start taking on management roles, if they want, they're ready. They're ready and they understand how special it is what you have created for them, and that they can then take what you've built and increase and grow from that model. And that, in our Constitution, it goes through each one of those steps. So without any further ado, I want to, there's so much here to go through, but I want to make sure that you understand the progress that we've made so far. We've turned our companies into employee-owned companies so that the community truly is benefits. We're seeing a total improvement of family relationships across the board. We're working a lot more together, and we're going to keep seeing more of this as we get all the structures in place better. But already we're seeing far better communication, far better transparency amongst family members as the greater effect of all the work that we've been doing. I think I'll leave you with the 5 generations of resilience and what lessons that we've had to learn in the hard way. And I think that really it's about serving something more than ourselves and really creating a culture and that we understand what is coming next always. And they're always looking for the next thing. So my dad would always say, when I was working with him, he'd always say, "What's the next tool?" When I was little, he's like, I'm doing this. What am I going to need next? And always be thinking ahead of what you're going to need next. And that's what we see with our family is what we're going to need next is a family bank and moving forward in that direction. So, Monica, I believe that we have some questions for me, but it's been a wonderful thing. I'm very pleased to go through any of this with you more in detail, individually. If you want to talk through where you're at in your family, so that we can really discuss how to make this work. So, thank you all very much today.
Ďakujeme veľmi pekne, Jacob. Yes, Monika?
Oh, you want to sit here? Okay. No, that's fine. I'll sit here.
Dobre. Tak, ďakujeme veľmi pekne za otvorenosť a ochotu zdieľať. Potrebuješ translátor asi. Je to veľmi výživné pre nás všetkých, ďakujeme. A spomenul si, keď sme sa spolu rozprávali, že aj niektorí bratia, ako keby v rodine, že ste spolu aj s bratmi a že nevždy ste hovorili si, že sa môžeme aj opýtať aj na túto oblasť. Tak sa chcem spýtať, že ako to teda dopadlo? Tie ako keby nejaké napätia medzi bratmi a súrodencami. Myslím si, že toto veľa našich rodín tu rieši, ako urobiť a nastaviť tie vzťahy tak, aby všetci členovia rodiny boli v poriadku, čo najviac OK, a že vtedy, keď ste si to ujasňovali, či ste si to urobili sami, alebo ste využili aj podporu nejakého mediátora alebo niečo takého. Takže ako také napätie u vás vyzeralo a ako to ovplyvnilo chod firmy? To sú moje 2 otázky.
Yes. So I probably could, with the family conflicts, I could probably sell admission to observe. I could sell tickets to admission to observe some of the more enjoyable fights that we've had as part of a family. But what we've really come down to is communication and education, and stepping away, like I just briefly got into, stepping away from having management and ownership always linked. It's very, very important that you can be an owner without needing to run the company, and that's created where I have 6 brothers, or I have 5 brothers. I'm 6, and that created a lot more where you can do your thing, you can create your own business, but it's all eventually contributing to the family at large. And there's a lot more freedom, and then the heir that wants to can take on management, or as we've done in Uhlenkott Underground, we brought on outside people, and in advanced welding and steel, it's the same. We brought in outside professionals to help run the family, to help run the business, so that we can focus on where we're going next as a family, and we don't have to manage every little detail.
Jake, ja ďakujem veľmi pekne, že si teda prijal naše pozvanie. Tiež veľmi chcem poďakovať za to, ako nádherne si zdieľal interné záležitosti svojej rodiny. Naozaj nie je to jednoduché, vidím to zahraničný, verím tomu, že tento trend nadstavíme aj teda na Slovensku, že naše rodiny sa nebudú bať rozprávať o tých negatívnych stránkach a práve tým, že sa budú o nich rozprávať, tak budeme ich spoločne riešiť. Ja mám otázku. Spomínal si, že to delenie majetku bola matematická katastrofa v predchádzajúcich generáciách. Teraz si prezentoval, že máte nadstavenú nejakú štruktúru trustovú. Chcela by som sa opýtať, kedy tá trustová štruktúra bola nadstavená, kto ju teda inicioval, ktorá generácia, a či vlastne vaša generácia 5. čerpáte z toho, že tá predchádzajúca alebo predchádzajúca generácia nadstavila tieto štruktúry. A ako si predstavuješ ty do budúcna nadstavenie nejakej štruktúry a či máte na to dosah? Či vám nechali vôľu tí predkovia, aby ste to mohli meniť v rámci tých trustových štruktúr?
Veľa otázok, vyber si, ktorou začneš.
Krásne. To súvisí spolu, vieš, aby...
Áno, výborne.
So for the structures, so we started implementing trusts with my grandfather. He's the one that built the farm into, he grew the farm significantly. We have the water well drilling company within that. We have the underground company within that trust. So trusts have been a part of it. The issue was that trust, the management of that trust and the way it was set up was ended up being very clunky for multiple generations. And so that's why we're looking at adding a family bank entity where the trust has the voting rights and the managing board of that, the trustees have the managing rights, and there's going to be a revolving ownership of that, and that's what we're establishing now is the family bank and the constitutions that run that family bank, so that we can have more shares available in multiple different companies, so that the whole family can participate without needing to be forced to participate. And it's an elected process. So that's, as far as looking forward, that's why we're really going after the family bank type of model, in addition to the trusts that have already been set up.
A máte to nejako formálne nadstavené v zmysle tom, že kto môže dediť podiely, alebo kto môže byť príjemca, kedy je nejaký člen rodiny vylúčený z beneficientu ako príjemcu proste z trustu alebo z nejakých iných štruktúr? Máte to aj formálne nadstavené? A vieš s nami zazdieľať, že kedy sú vylúčení?
Yes. Yes. So it is formal. It's part of the Constitution. We have a 3-strike policy for if you accept a loan from the family bank and you are not successful, that's your first strike. If you're not successful the first time, the thresholds drop in what you can loan from the family. If you do another venture and it's successful, then great, you're back in. If that second venture fails, you have a 3rd strike, but your threshold of what you can loan is even less. So that way, it's very clear that, and if your 3rd venture fails, then you have the annual, kicking off, the annual stipend, if you will, kicking off that you're part of the family, or an annuity. But outside of any access to family finances, you don't have anymore. So we make that very clear. If you don't show up to the family meetings in person without, like you're really sick or something, if you don't show up in person, that's a strike. That counts as a strike. It's very important to do this in person because that's where we communicate best. So there's some really strong parameters in the family bank constitution, and that has to be there. It's just like raising kids. You have to be very strong and have very strong guidelines to be involved. And at 18, we put in a provision where but starting from 16 to 35 is kind of the younger management coming in, and at 18 you get to make a formal commitment to join the family bank, and if you say no, that's fine. And if you go through college or whatever, you can come back in 3 years and then decide to commit at that time to be part of the family bank structure, so that you're really invited in to something and that you really choose to be part of something. Because you don't get to choose whether you're born or not, but as far as if you're participating in the family structures, you have to choose that when you're able to.
Jacob, mám takú otázku. Koľko členov má vaša rodinná rada dnes? A sú tam aj aktívni, aj pasívni členovia rodiny, čiže aj tí, ktorí majú svoje podnikanie, alebo aj tí, ktorí majú svoju inú kariéru?
Yes. So of my cousins, there's 28 of us cousins, all involved in the different enterprises. And then just in my family, I have 33 nieces and nephews. And then throughout in the other families, there's roughly the same. So we're looking at right now, just in our segment of the family that's doing the family bank, we're looking at over 120 individuals overall, because we're a very large family. And so this is why it's essential that we figure this out, because my cousins and I are where we can actually have a small enough group of people, but large enough to really make this decision, because next generation is it's 100 people, and it's really crazy really fast.
Ak si dobre spomínam, ty si práve v Ríme spomínal, že máš súrodencov ty a práve oni dvaja sú tí, ktorí nie sú v rámci rodinných štruktúr, lebo majú vlastné iniciatívy. Ako to brali trebárs rodičia a ako to vníma vaša rodina, a ty si práve ten veľmi akčný v tej rodine, ktorý sa rozhodol upratovať celú rodinu, si hovoril, že niektorí majú samostatné biznisy a že sa snažíš to znovu upratať v rámci rodiny pod jednu štruktúru, tak povedz mi, ako toto rodičia vnímali, ako to ty vnímáš a ako to ďalej vidíš treba s ich deťmi.
Yes. I created it first. I've traveled the world. I've worked with numerous people, including His Highness, talking about these issues and coming up with the structures that will work. So I built it first, a rendition, a draft. And then I started going to all of my cousins and family members, aunts and uncles, but mostly cousins, because it's really my generation that has taken over everything at this point. So it's really working with my cousins to build this together, and we're all doing our own opt-in, and we're funding it ourselves. And then the companies that are not part of it, the family bank is having profit shares off of each company, driving into the family bank to help grow it, so that by within the next 10 years, it's a fully funded what we want it to be at the level that we want it to be.
Spomínal si, že každý člen teda rodine nemusí byť v riadení. Máte nadstavené aj nejaké kritéria, formálne postupy, ako vybrať člena rodiny, ktorý by mal byť v riadení? Či musí mať nejaké vzdelanie, zručnosti, predchádzajúcu prax v iných firmách, alebo máte tiež nejaký možno vzdelávací fond?
Yeah, that's what we are working on. As a family, we've done that. We've done a lot of the education where most family members are quite competent to take on different roles, and we all understand that. As far as moving forward, that's what we are working on right now. Is there a way to really formalize that decision-making process? So that's something we're working on right now. But as far as being a member of the board, it's high competency. We have the board is a spiritual advisor who's outside, financial advisor who's an outside person, not part of the family, and then we have three family members, so the board of 5. And that board of directors right now is the most successful people in the family who are running the most successful companies. And then they're on right now we're doing a 3-year term. We're testing this out to see how that works. But they're on for 3 years, and then we elect and nominate those procedures. But as far as the qualifications, there needs to be a strong business acumen. There needs to be a strong philanthropic understanding and a strong desire and a demonstrated desire to help the family at large, not just themselves. And those are the key criteria right now that we're operating off of, and that will become more specific as this is part of a learning process for us too.
Ja by som sa ešte chcela opýtať, máte nadstavené nejako aj kritéria rastu firmy? Keď niekto vedie firmu alebo je v riadení, teda tí, ktorí sa podieľajú, hlavne tá C-level, či máte nadstavené nejaké rastové štruktúry, lebo predsa rodina v 5 generácií, keď je tam 30 ľudí, je rozdielne živiť takú rodinu a mať príjmy z rastu ako rodina, ako keď vás bude raz 100. Takže či máte aj takéto nadstavené nejaké laťky pre C-level, že musia dosahovať niečo a čo v prípade, ak nie, či tam proste zasadne nejaká tá rodinná rada alebo ten board a toho člena vie nejakým spôsobom odstrániť z toho vedenia. A ešte by som sa dopýtala otázku, možno, že to máte nejakého externého manažera, či využívate alebo predchádzajúce generácie využili.
Yes, and that's why we have external legal counsel, financial counsel, and spiritual counsel for who are, and the spiritual and financial are voting members of the board, so they have a real say in what we do as a family for when we need advice and there's a real issue. So this is more formalized than we've ever had as a family. And I forget what was the second part of your question. I want to make sure.
Ja som sa pýtala, myslím, ako poslednú, že či máte aj nejaké, či využívate externých a čo v prípade, keď niekto nesplňa kritériá nejakého rastové, či bude z toho boardu, ako keby, či môže byť odstranený a možno, že aj či kritériá sú vyberú na tú najvyššiu úroveň nejaké špeciálne, že či to máte tak nadstavené, že nie len po nejakej rodovej línii, že najstarší syn, ale naozaj, že musí byť top zručný a mať skúsenosti z iných firiem.
Yes. So the criteria, we don't have specific criteria yet. It's more of a board level decision and a family decision that we talk through. But the criteria that we use is, are they competent? Can they do the role? Do we have anyone in the family? Obviously, the preference goes to family. But if we don't have anyone in the family that fits the core competencies for a CEO role or for a, and if they don't understand the business very well, then that's not going to work. So it's part of a discussion right now, but it's very much based on merit more than if you're just part of the family. That's not enough. And as far as the growth question, it depends on the business a little bit. So a lot of our they range from anywhere from 8% margin up to close to 60% margin. So as far as the growth, it's kind of on a business by business and how difficult is that particular business to make that profit, and are you making that happen? So we'll look at all of those different things as part of the calculus and saying, are you going to be someone worthy of leadership?
Z tvojej prezentácie bolo zjavné, že ste veľmi veľkí prívrženci rodinnej ústavy, lebo si ju spomínala, aj sme sa o nej bavili. Je to živý dokument. Máte možnosť do nej vstupovať priebežne, doplňate ju a ešte by som sa opýtala otázku, čo určite zaujíma našu publikum, ako je to s in-law, tými vydatými, ženatými v rámci rodinných štruktúr, v rámci rodinných dokumentov a dedenia a podobne.
With in-laws, okay, yes. So for in-laws, we believe that, so based on our faith, we believe that, man and woman become one in marriage, and so we treat each couple as an entity. If there is a divorce, the non-family member is cut off from the ability to do loans, but they're still part of it. I mean, their genetics are now a part of the family. So that is always can be a very dicey thing, but we made it pretty clear, if there's any sort of divorce or anything like that, then they can no longer participate in the family, and that's part of the Constitution. So going to the Constitution, yes, it can be amended. We have it in there right now in its current form. We have it in there where it can be amended every 3 years. You have the board, but you can also do, we also have there's a clause in there for a referendum. So if you have a quorum of the family members themselves, we can add to the Constitution without the board. We can override the board if we need to, but it needs to be a supermajority, just kind of similar how to the U.S. government is set up.
Máme tu otázky publikácie.
No, každopádne čas je neúprostný a dostala som signál, že máme jednu otázku z publika, tak ten, kto má mikrofón, ďakujem. Martin.
Dobré ráno prajem. Volám sa Martin Meliško z slovenskej firmy, som zástupcom druhej generácie a v odbore hospitality tu na Slovensku. A chcel by som sa spýtať Jacoba, že čo bola preňho pri prevzaní vedúcej pozície najväčšia výzva?
Ďakujeme za otázku. Jacob, a potom už len posledná otázka.
So, that's a good point. So, I created the role. I didn't take it over. Actually, I helped my father move the management because I didn't want to manage the underground company at the time because I wasn't ready. And so I worked with my dad to bring on someone competent who was a cousin to run the underground company, Danielle and her husband. And so that's been going very well. I created this because no one in the family was doing it and was thinking of they haven't been able to travel like I have and experience. So as far as moving forward though for management for our most successful businesses like the steel company, our president of that company now, he's been with it for the last 30 years. It started in 1998, so almost 30 years. And he's been with that company since, for 25 years. And so we have very competent, second C-suite, and there's only a handful of family members in the day-to-day management of that company because we have very professional, very dedicated employees running that, and it's based on competency, how long they've been with the company. We like to hire from within, and some of the family members just they're not as good as they're not as competent as some of the people the outside people that have been brought in, and so we have no problem hiring outside people if we need to.
Ďakujem, Martin, za otázku. Ja prezradím, že vy ste priatelia a že ty si prišiel kvôli Jakeovi sem na kongres, tak sa veľmi tešíme, že si tu.
Posledná otázka, ktorú budeme dávať každému speakerovi, a tá je?
A tá je, čo by si odkázal našim podnikateľom, rodinným podnikateľom, aby si zachovali kontinuitu ich biznisu, aby rodina bola spolu,
taký
prežila
odkaz jednou
generácia.
vetou.
So I'm able to speak to you from a generation, from 2 to 3 generations past where you are to what you're doing today, and I can tell you the lack of clear succession planning in the first 3 generations, it was brutal for the family. And please think through this because the generational trauma can become very real from family conflict. And profitability and all this, of course, is absolutely mission critical to success. But please think of the subsequent generations and think of how, really think through how you're going to pass that on because, my grandfather built a lot and a lot was within the trust that he set up and he passed away before there was a very clear succession plan. So we had to battle it, my dad and uncles had to battle it out a lot. And a lot of what we are implementing now is because of of the pain of having to go through that for 10 years as a family to figure out how we were going to work together again. And if you can avoid that through clear thinking ahead, please invest in that, because your subsequent generations, and invest in the education so that the subsequent generations, so it's invest in that for yourself and your own clarity, but then also in the generation coming up. It's not just so that they have what they need, but so that they're able to take on what you've set up. So the education is a key part, and really emphasizing that in the children and starting young, because it's much easier to bring a child up in within the family and understanding how things work and having a clear culture, a clear set of values set up, and inviting a child into that than it is to try and build this as adults. So those would be the two things I would leave with.
Skvelé, myslím si, že lepším odkazom ani nemôžeme ukončiť túto diskusiu. Ďakujeme veľmi pekne.